The sky above Vienna burned red with the dawn of war. 1,000 fires smoldered on the plains, their smoke curling into the heavens like dark prayers. Drums rolled through the morning mist, deep, unending, and grim, echoing off the stone walls of a besieged city that refused to kneel. Beyond those walls, the sea of banners stretched to the horizon. The crescent moon of the Ottoman Empire glinted on countless standards. The armor of Janissaries shimmered like molten iron in the sun. 150,000 men, the might of a continent, encircled Vienna like a closing fist. Inside the city, barely 20,000 defenders stood, hungry, weary, and outnumbered 7-1. Their cannons were few, their powder damp, their walls crumbling, but their will unbroken. This was September 1683, and the fate of Europe would be decided here, at the gates of Vienna. For centuries, the Ottoman Empire had been the storm that rolled across the world. Born in the highlands of Anatolia, it grew from a spark of ambition into an empire that swallowed kingdoms whole. From Osman I, whose name gave rise to the dynasty, to Mehmed II, who conquered Constantinople in 1453. The Ottomans had carved their dominion across 3 continents. By the 17th century, they ruled an empire stretching from the deserts of Arabia to the mountains of Hungary, a realm where the call to prayer echoed over 1,000 cities. To friend and foe alike, they seemed unstoppable. Their armies were disciplined, their fleets unmatched, and their rulers believed their conquests were guided by divine will. But in the heart of that greatness, ambition burned too bright, and ambition, history whispers, is the spark of downfall. Subscribe to The Silent Katana, where true ancient stories breathe again. Hit the bell to never miss the next untold legend. At the center of this storm stood one man, Kara Mustafa Pasha, the Grand Vizier of the Ottoman Empire. Tall, composed, and ruthless, he was both a scholar and a soldier. But above all, a man haunted by the dream of immortality. In 1683, Sultan Mehmed IV gave him command of the imperial army. The Sultan's words were simple: take Vienna, and you open the road to Rome. Vienna was more than a city. It was the beating heart of the Habsburg monarchy, the bulwark of Christendom. To conquer it meant to break Europe's spine. Kara Mustafa saw his destiny written in that command. He would not merely win a war. He would etch his name into the empire's eternal story. In the spring of 1683, the Ottoman war machine began its long, thunderous march westward. From the plains of Edirne, the imperial army moved like a tide. Infantry, cavalry, engineers, and siege masters, stretching for miles beyond sight. At its heart rode the Janissaries, the Sultan's elite soldiers, taken as children from Christian lands, converted and trained to fight with unflinching devotion. Behind them came the Sipahi cavalry, proud nobles on armored horses and endless trains of artillery, bronze cannons dragged by oxen and siege mortars capable of shattering fortresses. They crossed the Danube with bridges of boats. Villages fell silent before them. Everywhere they went, the ground shook beneath their march. By June, the army reached the borders of Austria. Kara Mustafa moved with calm precision, his mind already fixed on Vienna, the jewel he would seize for his sultan. Vienna, at that time, was a city of roughly 20,000 soldiers and 80,000 civilians, encircled by ancient walls that had seen centuries of conflict. But the Habsburg Emperor, Leopold I, was unprepared. When the news arrived that the Ottomans were marching, panic swept through the court. On July 7, 1683, the emperor and his family fled the city, leaving its defense to Count Ernst Rüdiger von Starhemberg, a soldier of iron resolve. Starhemberg was no stranger to war. He had seen Ottoman sieges before. He knew the cost of surrender. With only 15,000 soldiers and 5,000 volunteers, he prepared to hold Vienna against the might of an empire. He reinforced the gates, gathered supplies, and swore an oath before his men. "We fight for the cross, for the emperor, and for the life of our city. We shall not yield." On July 14, 1683, the Ottoman army reached Vienna. The earth trembled as their artillery took position. Kara Mustafa's massive camp, filled with silken tents and banners of green and gold, sprawled across the plains, a city of war facing a city of stone. At dawn, the first cannon fired. Its echo rolled through the valley like thunder. Then came 1,000 more. For 60 days, the city endured a rain of iron and fire. The walls cracked, towers fell, and smoke cloaked the streets. Ottoman engineers tunneled beneath the bastions, planting barrels of gunpowder to rip open the defenses. Each explosion tore chunks from the city's walls. And with each breach, the defenders rushed to fill the gaps with earth and rubble. Inside the walls, starvation began to spread. Food grew scarce. Water turned foul. Disease crept through the narrow streets. But still, the defenders held, their faith of fire that refused to die. Outside the walls, Kara Mustafa waited. He had the strength to crush Vienna quickly, but pride blinded him. He wanted to take the city intact, a perfect trophy for the Sultan. He forbade his soldiers from looting or destroying what would soon be his prize. And so he delayed the final assault, believing time was on his side. But time, as history would soon prove, was his greatest enemy. For while the Ottoman cannons roared, messages slipped through the siege lines. Desperate pleas for aid from Starhemberg to the outside world. Carried by couriers who risked capture and death, those messages reached the courts of Europe. And one man, upon hearing them, answered the call. Far to the north, in the city of Krakow, the news arrived. Vienna was under siege. Europe's eastern gate was breaking. The message reached King John III Sobieski of Poland, a monarch known for his brilliance in battle and his devotion to Christendom. He read Starhemberg's plea and rose from his throne. Sobieski had fought the Ottomans before. He knew their strength and their arrogance. He vowed to march to Vienna's aid, even if no other crown stood beside him. But he would not march alone. In the shadows of diplomacy, an alliance formed. The Holy League, uniting Poland, the Holy Roman Empire, and the German states. It was a coalition born of desperation. Catholic and Protestant princes setting aside centuries of conflict to face a common foe. On August 15, 1683, Sobieski led his army south. 30,000 Poles, joined by 40,000 imperial troops under Charles of Lorraine. 70,000 men rode toward Vienna, guided by faith and fury. By early September, Vienna was near its breaking point. The Ottomans had breached parts of the outer walls. The defenders fought from ruins. The air stank of smoke and death. Children cried in cellars as shells burst above. Priests moved through the streets, offering final blessings to the wounded and the dying. And still, Starhemberg refused to yield. He stood on the ramparts, his uniform stained with dust and blood, his eyes fixed on the plains beyond the walls, praying for a sign that help would come. And then, one evening, as the sun sank behind the hills, a sound drifted on the wind. faint at first, but growing. It was the echo of distant horns. Hope had returned. On September 11th, 1683, the combined Christian forces reached the hills north of Vienna, the Kahlenberg Heights. From there, they looked down upon the vast Ottoman camp, stretching in every direction, lit by thousands of torches. The siege engines gleamed in the twilight. The banners of Islam swayed like waves beneath them. Sobieski studied the field. He saw the flaw in Kara Mustafa's formation, his army spread too thin, his rear exposed to the forested slopes. It was a fatal arrogance. Sobieski smiled. He turned to his generals and spoke. "Tomorrow we strike." That night, the coalition army prayed beneath the stars. From every camp rose hymns and chants. Germans, Austrians, and Poles united in one cause. And in the city below, Starhemberg's defenders saw the fires on the hills and wept with joy. For the first time in 2 months, Vienna slept in hope. At dawn on September 12th, the sky blazed crimson over Vienna. The Ottoman cannons opened fire again, believing the city near collapse. But from the hills came an answering roar. The sound of European drums, horns, and banners unfurling in the wind. The coalition army began its descent. Columns of infantry advanced through the forests, while cavalry massed behind them, hidden from view. At their head rode King John Sobieski, astride his white charger, his armor glinting like dawn itself. From the city walls, the defenders watched in awe as the sun rose over the battlefield, and with it, the promise of deliverance. The siege that had begun with fear was about to end in fire. The morning of September 12th, 1683, broke clear and golden. A rare stillness hung over the plains of Vienna, the kind of silence that lingers before storms, when the earth itself seems to hold its breath. From his command tent, Kara Mustafa Pasha gazed toward the city walls. He saw smoke rising, the scars of battle etched across stone and flesh alike. Victory felt inevitable. His scribes were already drafting letters to the Sultan, proclaiming Vienna's fall. Yet somewhere beyond the forests to the northwest, faint ripples of dust betrayed movement. Scouts whispered of enemy forces massing on the hills, but the Grand Vizier dismissed them. How could a divided Christendom unite fast enough to challenge his empire's might? He smiled beneath his jeweled turban and turned away. Hubris had deafened him to the sound of history's approach. From the wooded slopes of the Kahlenberg Heights, the Allied forces began to descend. The plan, forged in secret through the night, was daring. A three-pronged assault designed to crush the Ottoman lines before they could regroup. On the left, Charles of Lorraine led the Austrian and German contingents, 20,000 men, moving with grim resolve through smoke and trees. On the right, the Bavarian, Saxon, and Franconian troops advanced down the steep hills, their armor flashing in the rising sun. At the center, hidden behind the ridges, waited King John III Sobieski and his Polish hussars, ready for the decisive blow. Their descent was silent, save for the rustle of banners and the clatter of armor. As they emerged from the forest, the Ottoman sentries finally saw them, and panic rippled through the camps. Cannon fire erupted, echoing across the valley. The great battle for Vienna had begun. The fields outside Vienna became a maelstrom of smoke and steel. Ottoman infantry rushed to meet the advancing lines, their war cries piercing the roar of artillery. Janissaries, the empire's elite, fought with disciplined ferocity, their muskets spitting flame, their scimitars flashing in the haze. The European infantry pressed forward, step by bloody step. Every hill, every trench became a battlefield. The air filled with the thunder of cannonballs and the screams of the wounded. For hours, the two sides clashed, neither yielding. From the city walls, Starhemberg's defenders watched as the tide of war raged before them. When the Ottomans diverted forces to face the coalition army, the Viennese seized their chance. They burst from the gates in a desperate sortie, striking the enemy's flank. Chaos rippled through the Ottoman ranks, and from the hills above, Sobieski saw it, the moment he had been waiting for. The Polish king raised his hand, his eyes reflecting the blaze of battle below. Behind him stood 20,000 cavalrymen, their lances gleaming and their horses stamping in restless anticipation. At their backs fluttered wings, great wooden frames adorned with eagle feathers, the signature of Poland's elite warriors, the Winged Hussars. Sobieski drew his sword, sunlight flashing on the blade. His voice carried across the ranks. For God, for Poland, and for Vienna, forward. Then came the sound, a thunder like the breaking of the earth. 20,000 hooves struck the soil as one, shaking the ground with divine fury. The hills trembled as the hussars descended, a living avalanche of steel and faith. From the Ottoman lines rose cries of disbelief. No army had ever seen such a charge, vast, disciplined, unstoppable. The Polish banners, red and white, streaked through the smoke. Cavalrymen crashed into the Ottoman flanks with crushing force. The once ordered camp dissolved into chaos. Janissaries broke ranks. Cannoneers abandoned their guns. The tide had turned. From his command post, Kara Mustafa Pasha watched the unthinkable unfold. His camp, the pride of the empire, a city of silk and gold, became a sea of panic. He tried to rally his men, but the roar of the hussars drowned his voice. The banners of the crescent fell one by one. As Sobieski's cavalry tore through the Ottoman heart, the defenders of Vienna surged forward, meeting them at last on the battlefield. The two armies, one from within the city, one from the hills, joined as one tide, crushing the besiegers between them. By late afternoon, the Ottoman line was shattered. Kara Mustafa ordered a retreat, his proud army now fleeing across the plains. He rode from the field in silence, his dream of glory turned to ash. Behind him, the once proud Ottoman banners lay trampled in the mud, mingled with the torn flags of Europe's defenders. A single field bearing the scars of two worlds colliding. When the sun set that evening, Vienna stood free. The guns fell silent, the smoke drifted away, and the bells of the city began to ring. The sound rolled across the plains like a hymn of deliverance. King John III, Sobieski, rode through the breached gate, his armor blood-stained and dusted with powder. Starhemberg met him on the steps of St. Stephen's Cathedral. They clasped hands, a gesture that spoke more than words ever could. The king dismounted and entered the cathedral, where priests knelt in thanksgiving. His prayer was simple. I came, I saw, and God conquered. Venimus vidimus Deus vicit. The people wept in the streets, not for the fallen, but for the miracle that they had lived to see. For the Ottoman Empire, the defeat at Vienna was not just a loss of battle. It was the fracture of destiny. An empire that had marched unchallenged for centuries now stumbled before the gates of Europe. The illusion of invincibility was gone. Kara Mustafa Pasha fled to Belgrade, carrying with him the weight of failure. When word of his defeat reached Sultan Mehmed IV, rage followed swiftly after. In December of that same year, the Grand Vizier was executed by royal decree, strangled with a silk cord, the mark of a noble death. Thus ended the life of the man who sought to bring Rome beneath the crescent moon, undone not by weakness, but by pride. In the years that followed, the Battle of Vienna became the fulcrum of a changing world. Europe, once divided by creed and crown, found a fleeting unity in victory. The Holy League pressed its advantage, pushing Ottoman forces back across Hungary and the Balkans. From 1683 to 1699, battle after battle eroded the empire's reach, culminating in the Treaty of Karlowitz, where for the first time in centuries, the Ottomans ceded vast territories to Christian powers. The empire that had once stood at the gates of Vienna now began its long retreat into history. But the story of that September morning endured. It became legend, the day when faith, courage, and unity turned the tide of the world. In Vienna, centuries later, the marks of cannonballs still scar the old walls. Beneath the cobblestones lie the bones of soldiers, Austrian, Polish, German, and Ottoman alike, who fought and died for a vision of the world that would outlive them all. The memory of the siege lingers in the silence of dawn, in the distant toll of church bells that once rang in victory. Historians speak of tactics and alliances, of kings and viziers. But the true heart of Vienna's story beats in the courage of those who endured when all hope was lost. Empires rise as tides do, swelling with conquest and confidence. But no tide climbs forever. The Ottomans had reached their zenith, their banners brushing the edges of Europe's sky. Yet on that September day in 1683, the tide turned. From the ashes of the siege came a lesson carved in stone and fire: that arrogance is the shadow of power, and unity, however fragile, can change the course of empires. For the men who fought at Vienna, on both sides, the dawn that followed was no mere sunrise. It was the birth of a new age. And so, when the bells of St. Stephen's ring across the city today, their sound carries an echo from that distant battlefield. An echo of drums, of hooves, of cannon thunder, of courage and loss, of a world that stood on the edge of conquest and chose instead to stand its ground. The siege of Vienna was not merely the end of an invasion. It was the turning of a world, the moment when East and West met in fire and faith, and history, forever changed, whispered its eternal truth. Empires fall not when they are defeated, but when they forget why they fight.